Hello, my fellow knights and warriors, and this is yet another of the videos about the siege rules, and today I am going to cover the only one optional rule that was included in the siege. It is a panic. Panic is an interesting case. Uh, I have to admit that I liked the idea of introducing some of the morale-based rules for the Cry Havoc family, but from the other hand, I never used panic rules much. Well, why? Because they are weird. The easier thing to say they are weird, but the problem is that they might clearly and quickly make confusion all over the board and turn a lot of your warriors running away without even participating in combat. Okay, let me tell you how they work. First of all, panic rules are in effect every time one of your character is being killed. When your character is being killed by enemy fire or during the hand-to-hand combat, you have to stop the game and make a roll in the panic table. Panic table looks like that. And if you will roll 1 to 5, nothing happens, game goes on. If you will roll any other result, you have to use it now, right in this moment. If it is 6, 7 or 8, a couple of your characters panics, and if you get 9 or 10, a lot of your characters rolls. So now, what it means. If there are any of your characters in the 3 hexes range from the character that who was killed, they might panic. It is your choice who is going to panic. If, for example, if there is one character being killed and there is a couple of them around, and the result says one character panics, then you have to choose which one of them. But it is not that easy. First of all, according to panic rules, we have 3 types of warriors. First of them are knights, all of them with Sir next to their name. They never panic. No matter what happens, they never panic, they are bravest of all. Next, you have soldiers. These are all warriors who are not knights. And they can panic only if there is friendly knight of another soldier being killed. And finally, you have peasants and civilians. They create one group of for the purpose of these rules, and they panic whenever any friendly character in the 3 hexes distance is killed. So it depends on who was killed. For example, let's assume that this crossbowman fires at him and he is killed. So you have to make a roll, and let's assume that I rolled 7. 7 means 2 characters panics. Now all of them are in the 3 hexes range from him. 1, 2, 3. No, he is not. So he is not affected by panic. And now I have to choose 2 of them who are about to panic. This is soldier. So everyone made panic, save to the knight. Knight never panics. So let's say I'm going to choose him and her. So these 2 characters are about to panic. If this archer would kill this peasant instead, then these soldiers and knight wouldn't be affected by panic. Only this peasant or this civilian would be affected by panic, because only they are affected by fact that peasant was killed. And now, how panic works. If your character panics, he or she has to retreat 3 hexes away, moving as far from the enemy characters as possible. This means that if there is enemy characters nearby him, he has to move away 3 hexes. This might already disrupt some of your plans, but that's not all. You are free to retreat through the hexes with friendly characters, but you must know not move through the hexes adjacent to the enemy characters. So you have to move in the way you'll be as far from the enemies as possible. And now, when your own turns comes, you, with your panic characters, can still move, but you cannot move adjacent to the enemy character as long as you are panicked. Your panic disappears when you end your movement phase at the hex which is adjacent to either a sergeant or knight. So it may end very quickly right at the end of the next movement phase. So that's quite good, but if a character is not healed from panic, he's still under its effect and cannot move adjacent to the enemy characters. Of course, even if he is panicked, it doesn't mean that he can, for example, perform a missile combat. Of course, he can, but he cannot move on the hexes adjacent to the enemy, and if he is attacked by enemy, then enemy gets one column shift for his favor. So panic is already pretty bad thing. You can imagine that you have, for example, two of your characters being killed because of the enemy fire, and then you have a couple of bad rolls and a lot of your warriors are running away. But it is still not the worst thing that might happen to you, because there is a road effect. If you will roll 9 or 10, 3 or even 6 of your characters may road. Road works in the same way as panic, save to the few exceptions. First of all, roading character must retreat with his or her maximum movement allowance. And of course, such character must retreat in the way to be as far from enemy as possible and cannot move on the hexes adjacent to the enemy. And if his movement phase comes, he has to retreat again, but he has to move next to the nearest edge of the board, if possible. Because for the first, he has to retreat as far from the enemies as possible, and for the second he has to move as closer to the edge of the board as possible. If he leaves the board through the edge, he leaves the game. He doesn't count for the number of dead characters if scenario gives players victory points for characters being killed, but he leaves the board. He can be healed from the road effect in the same way as from the panic. He has to be at the end of his movement phase on the adjacent hex with sergeant or knight. So you can tell that panic is bad, but road is really annoying. There is one major exception from all the panic rules. If your characters are in the castle, they never subject to panic or rout. So they are safe there and they don't have to rout. So what is my problem with rout rules? Again, only a few of bad rolls and a lot of your army is running away. Some might like this because it brings some confusion, chaos, and makes a game bit less predictable. Yeah, that's the fact. But I think it makes the game bit too random. So that's why I think this rule wasn't used later many times. It was never introduced in Norman Saga, I believe, and I think players never used it much. So did I. It's not an optional rule that you will see often in my plays.